Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP UI5. In the last class of SAP UI5, we saw how to create master detail type of application. Towards the end of the class, I have given an exercise for all of you to work upon navigation for detailed page from the master screen. So let's have a look at the solution of this exercise. So you can see here by far what we have created is a master detail screen. On the master section now we have a list control and a search field, and on the details screen we have the details being listed on selection of a item inside of a list control. So let's go ahead and now disable the arrow button and the delete button. This was an exercise for the last class. So what I'm going to do is I'll simply go to our view 1 where we have created all of them, and I'm going to disable first of all the navigation. So you can see type navigation. When I disable, I save this, come back and refresh, you'll see the arrow is gone. And now I want to change this delete mode to single select master mode. So let's come and change it to single select master mode, so that this delete button goes away and we get a nice selection enabled for each of our item. But oops, what do you see is when I now choose an item on the list control, my navigation to the detail has been stopped. How to solve this issue? So we need to now find the relevant event which would trigger on click of this. Yeah, so by far when you were clicking on each of the item, the event which was triggered was item press, because you have enabled the navigation at the item level. Okay, so what you have done was you had enabled something called navigation over here at the item list level, and because of that it was not working. Now what we have also done was we have enabled item press event, which triggers only when user click on an item. So there are two options to do that. Option number one is you can make type equals to active. That's option number one. So you can put in an additional property type equals to active, or you can also switch to another event handler called selection change. Selection change event will trigger whenever user changes the selection of an item, and I will attach my same event handler on item press to this selection change event. So instead of item press, now the event which we are using is selection change event. Let's save this, come back and refresh the page, and I now select an item and you see voila, it works fine. So there were two techniques to achieve the same. One was put the type as selection change, sorry, type as active, and another was to change the event instead of item press to selection change event. These were the two options you have. Whichever you like, you can choose from. Clear, guys? How to achieve the exercise which we have done in the last, which I've given in the last class. Moving on now, what I want to now do is just to make it look like a similar to standard Fiori application, I want to design a tab strip. Okay, I want to design a tab strip like this inside of this area, and when you click on one of the tab item, it should load corresponding content to at below screen. So this is what I want. When you click on one of the item, it should correspondingly load the corresponding content for that tab in below. So that's called icon tab bar. So what you see is all these different tabs. What you see, this is called icon tab bar control in SAP UI5, and each of these items inside of icon tab bar are known as icon tab filters. Okay, ITF, ITD, sorry, ITB bar, and inside of a bar you have an icon tab filter. So you have an icon tab bar which has all the tabs which you need, and icon tab filter which has the tab items which you want to display, and each of the item tab has its own aggregation called content, which displays its own content to the user. So let's go to the system and try to put an icon tab bar. Of course, you can look at UI5 SDK for the documentation of the content. I switch to view tool. Let me close all the windows which I don't want. I just work um, with the windows which I want to work with actually. So I just keep them open. Otherwise, rest of the things I don't keep it open at all. So below the object header, now I'm going to add something called an icon tab bar. And inside of this, we have an item segregation, and I will add icon tab filter, and I can give a text property for each of the icon tab filter. So I can give a text property, let's say more data, and I can say I can also give an icon property, and I can say SAP hyphen icon colon slash slash, and I don't know right now an icon to attach here. Which icon I will attach? Maybe I'll attach a product icon, and then I will also give a key property called more data. That's my first icon tab bar filter item. Okay, so as of now you will see a bar with only one item inside. Let's go ahead and test this. So I can come back, refresh the page, and you see you've got a nice cute icon tab bar, and this icon tab bar has one of the icon tab filter item. Let's add two more over here, and I can say another icon tab filter. Never copy paste the code, guys, until you understand the line by line. Then you say text, and I want this to be as, let's say, um, mass change, and I say icon equals to SAP hyphen icon, and then maybe some icon we will be putting. Maybe I'll just put right now the home icon. You all know how to take the icon from, and then say mass change, and then that's it. And then coming to the next one, icon tab filter over here. It's case sensitive, so be careful. Text, and I'll say supplier, and then I'll say icon, SAP hyphen icon, supply key, supplier. Okay, these are all three of my icon tab filter. You can also go back and check the documentation for icon tab filters over here in API reference. You can see it here, different variety of icon tab filters available in SAP, different properties of them. So you can come here and see there is an aggregation, and this says content, which means in each of the icon tab filter now can have content, and in that we can put any number of controls we like. Clear, guys? There's a content aggregation. Now going on the top, you can also look at its properties. It has count, show all, icon color, icon density, different properties are there. But the property which I had put text and key property, it's not visible. So text and key property which we had used is not visible. Why? What to do, guys, to find the text and key property which is not visible over here into the control? How did I use it? Yes, of course. It must be coming from parent class, and a very known parent class, SAP core item class, very known parent class used many places in UI5. It has two properties, text and keys. Very powerful class. You can come and check out the properties. You have a text property and a key property which is available along with this control. It is a class which is inherited by many classes. You can see view subclasses, and you see so many classes are inheriting from this class. Okay, list item class. So let's move on. What I'm going to do is now what I will just try and do with this is I'm going to put content inside. So first let's start with this guy, the first guy. So let's put its content, and I'm just going to put in this a content called simple form. So I'll get it from form element, and I'm going to define this namespace for simple form. So let's define the namespace on the top for the form, just a little bit alignment, XML namespace. Form means sap.ui dot layout dot form element. So that's your namespace for form element, SAPY layout form. And now I am just using this namespace to define all the form content. So let's use this aggregation and understand what are all the properties simple form expose me. So I go to simple form and I go to its parent class, which is simple form parent class aggregations, and you see there's a content again, and this content includes label input pair. So, or it can also include label text view pair. So let's go ahead and put content. Remember, you are using an aggregation of form which is part of F library, and then you have to also use F as a namespace for the content aggregation. So it's an aggregation of simple form control only, so you have to use this also as F. And now inside of this you can put label, and you can also put the input fields if you want, or you can want, maybe I can just put input fields, and then I say label text property is something, and I'm just going to keep this with binding. So I just do a element binding now with our element which we have binded. And let's go and check out our fruits JSON, see some more properties which we need. Maybe I want a price and a currency data to be displayed for each of the fruit in an editable form. So I say price and just bind it with the price property, and then I say label text currency input value with the currency property. That's the binding. I'm done. So save this. We are nice. So now you have a simple form inside content of your first icon tag filter. Let's go ahead and test it. So refresh, and voila, beautiful. You see a price and a currency field is being displayed. When I select an item, you see its price is editable. I can change the price of an item to, let's say, 250, and you see it got also updated over here because it's a two-way binding, guys. That's the beauty what you have it with the two-way binding. So I can just anytime change the price of a product and it gets updated everywhere into my model. Clear, guys? So that's the beauty of your change. So you can create a simple form like this is how they do it. They don't do any magic. Now maybe I can also arrange the width a little bit. So I can say width of this field is to be my input field to be let's say 40 pixels, and the other guy width I want is to be 60 pixels. Save this. Let's come back, refresh the page, and you see this is very small actually. So make it at least 100 and 150, and there you go. How does it look like? It looks beautiful. So that's my simple form which is displaying the data for editing the price of a fruit quite easily. Moving on, and now what I want is, maybe I just want to click on save button, and I want to give a feel like as if it is going to save the data. So I click on save button. I want to give a pop-up to the user. So on click of save button, a pop-up should appear, and this pop-up should ask user, do you really like to save? Yeah, so do you really like to save? And then I want a confirm button and a cancel button. Okay, so if you click on confirm button, then I'm going to give a message at the bottom saying that your changes have been saved successfully. Okay, so that's what I want to do exactly now as part of my functionality. Clear, everyone? What is that user expecting now? So user expect on click of save button a confirmation box, and on click of confirm button, user want to see a message that your changes have been saved for the price successfully. This is what the end user requirement is. Now, do you use alert here? We all learned alert function in JavaScript. Do you use alert here? Of course not. Now, also a recommendation, guys, never use alert with your Fiori. Okay, you have to find out a control which can give you messages in Fiori, and that's done using a reusable component called SAP M Message Box API. Okay, you can find the documentation of that here, message box API. So you can see SAP M Message Box API. You can use this message box API to throw different variety of messages, pop-ups, whatever you like. Okay, so you can see an SAP message box they are using. Now you must be wondering, what is this? Anyone, what is this? This is something which is you're seeing for the first time. This is actually nothing but loading the dependencies. Now this was replaced by what? How do we load dependencies on other module now? Which concept do we use to load dependencies in SAP UI5? Which concept do we use to load a dependency in SAP UI5 on a module? Perfect answer, Samir. It's scaffolding template. So that's the reason this concept become obsolete. Okay. They are just showing this to test you in the browser. So you can copy this code, press F12 and put it here, paste it and show the output. Okay, so this is how you can test it. Actually, this is why they've given this dependency using jQuery SAP require, but this concept is obsolete because you don't need to use it, because the dependency can be loaded using scaffolding template. So all this is a dependency on a message box module, so that has to be loaded first before you call a message. So they've given examples so that you can test it locally. That's the reason they put jQuery SAP require. But this concept of jQuery SAP require I'm talking about is obsolete. We don't use it in our real code. All the dependencies are managed by scaffolding template. So let's go ahead and do that. So on click of save button, I'm gonna go and give a pop-up. So first find out where is this save button guy. So the save button guy is here, and there's an action called on save. So on save, I'll go to the controller, and then I'll just put a button over button code over here on save function, curly braces, and I'm just gonna load the dependency on message box API. So sap/m/message box. You can also use SAP jQuery.sap require to load this dependency, but that's not recommended. Always use scaffolding template. And I say message box, whatever name you like. Okay, so that's my API name. And I can now easily go ahead and say message box dot confirm message I want to show. And then I want to say, do you really want to save the the new price? Okay, something of this sort I want to give, and then that's it. I want to just end it, save it. Let's come back and see at least the message is coming or not. So I refresh and I click on one of the fruit, and I'll click on save button, and voila, you see it gives me a nice little cute message in SAP Fiori, confirmation message. Do you really want to save the new price? You see OK and cancel button are coming. Now there must be some handling for OK and cancel which I have to probably do, right? There must be some handling which I have to probably do. So where can you do that? That's something called an on close event. So you come here, curly braces. So after the message title, put comma, curly braces, and in here you put on close. On close is an event which will get called when user close the pop-up. Now either user click on OK button or user click on cancel button, pop-up is anyways going to get closed. So that's why on close event got triggered. And here you will get an event object, just the way you get event object for methods. For this method also you get an event object where you will know what was the final selection by user. So maybe I just put it in a variable called Anubhav. So Anubhav will now tell me what was my final selection when I close the pop-up. So if Anubhav is equals to, it was okay, then I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do something else. So if it was okay, then I'm going to tell the system, please throw me a message, a toast message at the bottom of the screen. So those who are aware of SAP GUI, we have a message statement, throws a success message, it comes at the bottom. Similar to that, we have an opportunity here, Fiori, to throw a message at the bottom of the screen. And that's another dependency called SAP M toast message. Okay. And I just put it here, just say toast, and I'll just say toast dot show, and I say congratulations, your changes has been saved. Yeah, that's a message I'm giving. Now I'm just gonna use this guy and below, and I say oops, you forgot your changes. Fine. And I save this now. So that's the kind of flow which we are writing here. So first throw a confirmation message to the user, and when user click on OK or cancel, we will have this event handler triggered on close, and we are attaching an anonymous function over here, and when user clicks on OK, then do this, else do this. Very simple logic. Let's come back, refresh and experience it. So watch carefully. I'm gonna just do a save, simply a save. It asks me a confirmation, and I click on OK. What is that will happen on click of OK? Anyone? What do you think should ideally happen on click of OK? A message at the bottom should come up. Let's click on OK, and you see there is a message at the bottom. Congratulations, your changes has been saved. You might have seen these kind of messages in standard Fiori apps. That's how they do it. It's nothing but a toast message which you can display to the user. Clear, guys? Everyone clear? So that's how it works. Now I want to give also nice little cute feeling to it. So maybe after clicking on close, I want to wait for 2 seconds, and then I want to give a message to the user. Okay, so after clicking on OK or cancel, I want to wait for 2 seconds. So what I'll do is I can call a JavaScript function called set interval. Okay, oops, set interval, and in this I can put um, the callback function, what should be called when set interval happens, what should be called, and after how much second this method should be called. So I'll say after maybe 5 seconds this should be called. Okay, and I will say here I'm gonna tell the system that I'm gonna make the view load later. So I will create a variable var that equals to this, and then I'll say that dot get me the view object dot set busy equals to true. Make the view busy, make the view busy, and after that make a call to set interval, and after 5 seconds this function will trigger. In this function now again I'm going to check what was the state, was it okay or um, okay or was it not okay. And of course this callback function in set interval, you have to also pass the value anubhav, very important, which is very important. And once it was the set interval is executed completely, I'm going to say this that dot get view dot set busy equals to false. So what exactly I'm doing here, I'm telling the system to wait for 5 seconds, just to kind of simulate it, guys, to wait for 5 seconds before displaying this, um, before doing anything. So after user click on OK or cancel, I'm going to wait for 5 seconds uh, to handle this event. Okay, to handle this code. So what is set busy function? Set busy function is actually used to make your code, make your app, or make your whole thing looks like a loading indicator. Okay, so you will see it in a minute. How will it look like? It will get you a loading indicator at the view level. So let's come back, click on save, and now watch carefully, guys. It will wait for 5 seconds until it gives you the success message. So it's kind of a simulation it gives. So I say okay, and oops, yes, you see view is going for a wait for 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds you get your message. You see guys, after 5 seconds you're getting a message, but oops, it's a wrong message, which means the context of Anubhav was not passed. So you see this variable Anubhav, though I have passed this variable Anubhav inside of this, the context of this is not available. So maybe what I'll do is I create a local variable var, and I say for async m, and I just pass it Anubhav inside. So what am I doing is I am passing Anubhav variable. I'm taking Anubhav, and this is what I'm putting in a local variable. Remember, guys, it's an, is it a synchronous function? Anyone? Do you think it's a synchronous function? This function, what I had put, is it a synchronous function? Of course not. This function is, it will be triggered after 5 seconds. Okay, this function is a asynchronous function, which means system will continue here, and after 5 6 seconds system will come back and trigger this piece of code. This is an asynchronous function. Remember guys, whenever you have an asynchronous function, the of context which is outside this function is not available. Only the variables which you declared, only the variables which you declared in local within the method. So the context of on save is this. In on save method this will work directly, but if this on save method is calling on another method, okay, this on save method is calling in another method, this pointer is not accessible. This pointer is accessible in on save, but it is not accessible over here. That's why I have to create also a local variable var that equals to this. So this that can be treated, can be accessed here. You see that, and same that is again accessed over here. So you have to create a local variable within your method which is making a call to an asynchronous function to access your variables. That's what next I'm doing. This Anubhav variable is not accessible directly inside here. It is not allowing me. So what am I doing? I'm creating a local variable over here, and this local variable is what will be accessible within this function. Hopefully, let's go ahead and test it. So instead of Anubhav, I'll now use my local variable, which is going to store the value. Save this. Let's come back, refresh the page, and now I'll just go ahead and trigger this save button, OK button, and 5 second wait. It's loading. Congratulations, your changes have been saved. See guys, the power of this. Beautiful, isn't it? Now, another problem with set interval is it continuously keeps on calling after every 5 seconds. So after every 5 seconds, you keep on getting congratulations messages, which is bad. Actually, it should be only call my method once after 5 seconds, right? Once after 5 seconds. So for that, instead of set interval, we have a set timeout function. Okay, so set interval means repetitively doing some task asynchronously after some time. But set timeout means only after the first time it will call. After just 5 seconds, it will call it. Set timeout function. I wanted to display both of them are JavaScript functions, JavaScript capability. We are just reusing it in UI5 and Fiori. Click on save, click on OK. It will go for loading indicator. You see, this is what set busy is doing. So you have, and you see, congratulations, changes have been saved. So hope you understood couple of concepts over here. The first concept of asynchronous function, where I have a method called on save method. This method is now making a call to an another method. So on close here, this on close, this anonymous function is also asynchronous method. Okay, so first asynchronous call. So on save is making a call to a function called anonymous function, and this has an argument called Anubhav. On save method can access this pointer, but the asynchronous function which on save is triggering cannot access this pointer. It cannot access, but this asynchronous function can access local variables of on save. Hence I have created a local variable where I assign this to that, and this then this that is accessible inside of my asynchronous function to refer to the view object, because later on I have to refer to the view object to make it busy, right? So that's why I have to use that. Clear, guys? Is this clear, everyone? What we are doing? And then there is another asynchronous function which on close function is calling. So on close is again calling another function, just the way you have a relation between on save and on close function. Similarly, now you have it between on close and this set timeout function, which is again asynchronous function. So the variable anubhav, which was accessible within this on close method, is no more accessible within here, within your asynchronous. So you have to create a local variable again, assign value of anubhav to that local variable, and this local variable is now accessible within the asynchronous function triggered by this function. So there is a nesting of two asynchronous functions inside. So on save is calling an asynchronous function, and this is calling another asynchronous function. So this is how the overall thing is done. So the variables which are there defined locally within the method are only accessible within these methods. Clear, everyone? Very important topic. You may see this in the real-time Fiori apps. Usually they create var that equal to this. The purpose of that is absolutely same. It's mainly used for the purpose of accessing the or creating local variable. Create a local variable which is later can be used by asynchronous function triggered by the method here. Clear, everyone? This is what exactly on save is doing. So this variable is then accessed. So if I try to just access this dot set busy, this dot get view set busy, guys, this will not work. This piece of code will not work because this is an asynchronous function which was triggered by on save. And since it's asynchronous, it is asynchronous. Why? You don't know when user click on OK and save. Do you know the definite time after 5 second, 10 second, 20 second will user close the pop-up? You don't know. You don't know. It's asynchronous. User has to take an action, and that moment this event handler will trigger. So the context, the variables which were there in your local on save are lost. You can't access them as long as you create them as a local variable and access it. So let's see now. It won't work. I can also show you debugging, or maybe just directly you'll see error in console when I try to access this pointer inside of my code. So I click on save, okay, press F12, and you see there's an error coming. This dot get view is not a function. Your view did not went into busy indicator this time. You see, this dot get view is not a function. So this problem may encounter to you many times in real time, where you're trying to access this pointer inside of an asynchronous function like here. It won't work. So what you need to do to solve this problem? Anybody? If you want to access this inside of this as a controller object inside of your asynchronous function, what will you do to now access this pointer, which is the controller object? Create a local variable. You can create this local variable with any name, not that. This is a general practice which I've seen in standard Fiori apps. That's why I'm using that equal to this, so that you can understand. I save this. We are done. Let's come back and experience an end-to-end amazing experience. It feels like, real Fiori app. If you demonstrate to your manager will see, अरे ये तो backend भी call कर रहा है. Click on OK और देखो loading indicator आएगा. See, as if like it's doing something. Yeah, it's like of cheating somebody. And now you see, congratulations. Yes, changes have been said. So once upon a time, my manager gave me a POC to build, and he asked me to do something, which then do something in the back end. I really did not implemented a single line of ABAP code. Everything was mock data in a JSON file. On click of save button, I did the same thing. I was like showing a loading indicator. This gives an implication like it is hitting the backend system, ABAP system, doing something over there, and then getting me the result. So my manager, it's so easy to make fool of people. Okay, my intention was not that. It was just like, I don't have time, and this was an extra effort which he asked for unnecessarily. So I would kind of, was able to do this quite nicely by fooling around people, and later on this was trashed. Nobody used this POC anymore. Yeah, so why to waste time in writing a BAP code, backend, OData service? Unnecessary. Just use all this concept and do little bit of cheating over here with this loading indicator, and that feels like, okay, something is going on in backend, and then you get a message which says wow, great, which means cool. But yes, if they want to see something posted in the backend system, then probably you have to create backend. There's no choice. But if you just want to demo the user interface UI, how does it look like, you can go ahead with this approach. Clear, everyone? What did we do? So asynchronous function, hope it is clear, the concept of asynchronous function. Let me note down this funda fox, very very important funda fox, guys. So very very important funda fox, funda fox. So what is happening here, we are actually having a method which is calling an asynchronous method, which means even though this method so this method will trigger call method 2. Okay, it trigger the call method too, but this method won't trigger start immediately. The execution of this method won't start immediately. It just made a call to it, and the call immediately comes back to the caller method. And then what happens is, later point of time, when an event triggers, okay, when an external event triggers, okay, later point of time when an external event triggers, when an external event comes in, that time the execution of this method will start. Okay, that point of time execution of method will start. So the event cause trigger of this asynchronous function, this is what cause triggering of this event. Event would trigger, like in this case, when user click on OK and cancel button, the actual execution is starting. So here execution don't start, you just say call asynchronous function. Okay, now the problem with this approach, when we call an asynchronous function, the execution of the asynchronous function will start on an event. Okay, it will start on an event when an event triggers, later point of time. Okay, when an event triggers, that point of time it will start. Clear, everyone? At that point of time execution will start. So in the context of main method, okay, in the context of main method, whatsoever variables were available, example this also, are not accessible inside of asynchronous function. Clear, guys? They are not at all available. So as so we need to define a local variables inside of main method, which is something of var that equals to this, to be able to access the scope variables of main method. Is that clear to everyone? Very 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 important topic, guys. This is what something I have seen very less trainer or no trainer in detailed date explaining this concept of JavaScript. This is the most important, interesting and powerful concept. So in this case there was a variable called this, which was accessible by my main method, which was the controller object. However, when user try to do this is not allowed. I mean, user will get an error. That's not allowed. That's not possible actually. You can't access this. The system will block you. So this access is blocked. You can't access it. Okay, you can't simply access it. Not possible. This is blocked. So what do you do to access this pointer inside of your asynchronous method? Anybody? What will you do to access this pointer, which is controller object, inside of your asynchronous method? What do you do? Anybody? What do you do to access now this pointer inside of your call method, inside of your asynchronous method, to refer to the controller object? What do you do? Anybody? What will you do to do that? What will you do to access it? What will you do? Anyone? What will you do to access now this pointer inside of your asynchronous function? What is that you need to do? You need to use a local variable. Absolutely, you need to use a local variable. So you need to define a local variable within your method. You can say var that equals to this, and now the scope of this local variable is there with the callback method. Okay, it is there with the callback method, hence you can access it over here. And same applies if this method is calling another asynchronous function, only the scope of this method is then available to the caller. Clear, everyone? Hope it's clear for all of you. How did we build this exercise? A most important concept in SAP UI5. This is a JavaScript concept actually. Okay, you will see this concept. Now there's another technique, not just defining a local. This is the easiest way. This is one of the easiest way. There's also another way where you just say dot bind this. So sometimes you will see people writing this, which means whatever is the context, this pointer, bind it with the context of my on close method. This is what also people does. Okay guys, this is what also people does. Bind of this is what they do. So don't panic, it's just more or less the same thing. In this case, now you are saying this will be also accessible within this method. That's what this bind is doing. So if you see, I don't want to create my local variable. Okay, this local variable, let's say if I don't want to create, so I can just bind my Anubhav variable dot bind, and I say Anubhav to my set timeout function. I'm binding Anubhav variable. So the good practice is use local variable. Sometimes you will see standard UI5 code, or some places you see dot bind also, which they use to send the value of the variable which is out of context, out of scope for the asynchronous method. But this is the one of the best way, easiest way, easy to understand, easy to consume. Dot bind is sometimes become little complicated for you to understand what is that dot bind is all about. Clear, everyone? Very powerful concept of SAP UI5, consuming the variables, consuming the scope of variables within the method. Okay, moving next. So now let's go ahead, and so we saw the messages, and you see it will go into loading indicator, waiting. After 5 seconds it will hit and gives me congratulation message. So we saw set interval as well as set timeout function, both we have seen. Now next to that, let's go ahead and now try and create a table control over here. Okay, so I want to create a table control. What is table control in Fiori? So it is not SAP UI table anymore. I am talking here about sap.m.table control library. Okay, I'm not talking about sap.ui.table which you created in UI5. That is also not a deprecated control. You can use that also here. Nobody stops you to do that. It's not a deprecated control, just like UI commons. You can use that also, but here I'm talking specifically m.table. What is the table control in UI5? Sorry, in Fiori. In Fiori, in M library, table control is nothing but is a multi-column list. It's a multi-column list. Okay, it's actually a list control. So if you say table, it's actually a list control. Now anybody, which was the base class for the list control? Anyone who will tell me which was the base class for my list control? Anybody? It was list base class. Perfect answer, Raji. So it was list base class. So you will find that if I look at the documentation of table control in UI5, sorry, in Fiori, you will find the base class for that is also list base class. That's why I'll say it's a multi-column list. Okay, it's a multi-column list. So let's go back and check this. So I come here, API reference, I search for table, SAPM table, you see here it is. And now if you see, the base class is list base class, which means table in Fiori is just a list control. So all the features of the list control, like mode, like navigation, like binding items, everything is available for you for free, absolutely free. What you learned by far, the concept of list, they all applies here. Only difference, it's a multi-column list. So you got to now give the value and template for multiple columns, guys. That's it. That's it. Nothing extra. Nothing extra. It's just a multi-column. Hence, you need to also create these columns. What you need, so it's a columns aggregation. And then you need, when you're binding, you got to bind individual column with the data. So let's go ahead to the system and I come here. So now I will just go ahead and create the table control inside of my next icon tab filter. I'm creating a table control. So what I'm going to do is to content, and then I just create a table. It's part of M library, so just create it simply. And now I'm just going to create columns aggregation, and each column is of type column class. So each column is like this. Let's look at the property of each column. So I click on the M column class to see the properties of the column, and you can come down and see width property, style, visible, demand, pop in, lot of different property, and there are multiple aggregation, header aggregation to tell what type of column it is. So let's define this header aggregation inside of column. So header of the column, that's an aggregation of the column class, and inside this I can say label. Okay, and then I can tell what is the label for this particular column. So maybe I want to again now this time display the list of cities, or yeah, list of suppliers, guys, I want to display. Okay, so I will go back to the JSON which Samir has created long back, and you see that we have another entity set called suppliers. I want to display all of them. So you see there's a name, city, contact name, phone number, since when is a supplier. So these 5 properties, let's put it in the table: name, city, contact number, phone number, since when. And I'll say if it is still available, is this supplier is still supplying, is this still doing the business in business, or I will say status. Now I'll say this supplier is actually, yes, he is available, he is supplying material to us, he can supply, he's still into the market. Sometimes some businesses become obsolete, right? So I can say obsolete, this supplier is obsolete, don't use this supplier. It is there for legal purpose in the system still, but we don't ask him for any material. Yeah, and then we come, let's say this supplier is uh, not good quality. Okay, he is supplying to you but quality is not good. Then you say available, and I say obsolete, and then say not good quality, and say available, not good quality, obsolete, not good quality, available, available, available. Save this, we are done. So let's go ahead and use this data now. Name, city, contact name, since when, and status. Name, city, contact name, since when, and status. We need those columns. So name, and then I'll use another column similar to this. I'll replicate city, since when, or contact name, since when he is supplying to me, and is this guy is, can I use it, is it, what is the status of the supplier. Clear, guys? That's what I want. So that's my 5 columns. Let's go ahead and display this onto the screen. You're gonna get a beautiful table with 5 columns inside. Go inside, voila, amazing. Name, city, contact name, since when, status. 5 columns aggregated all inside of a table control which belongs to a list class as a super class. So that's an aggregation with columns. How did you got data in this list? Anyone who will tell me how did I got data inside of this list control? What did I do to get data inside of a list? Table is also list. Absolutely right answer, every one of you. We have done binding of an aggregation. What we did to bring in the data. Which aggregation did we use to do binding of list control? Who will tell me? Which aggregation of list control did we use? No, 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 not element. Which aggregation? No, not row. No. List control I'm asking on the left side, which we created the other day. Which aggregation did we use to bring these list items? Yes, Samir got it right. Gotham got it right. It was the items. Archana got it right. Items aggregation, guys. So table is nothing more than a list. You just do a bind items. Just do a bind items, guys. It's nothing more than a list. So let's come here. Just the way we binded the list control, I put items aggregation here, and inside of these items I put curly braces and put slash. My path of suppliers, it's just slash supplier, that's a path. Save this, we are good, this part is okay. And now let's come down and just do the items aggregation. So inside of this, now it'll just, after the columns are completed, just do items. And here, guys, the last one which I missed it in the previous class, column list item type, is what we're gonna use. And inside this we have cells, and each cell will represent column. How many columns you have in the table? How many columns you have in the table? Anyone? How many columns you have? 5. So you need 5 cells. Each cell will tell the template what type of column you want. So let's say first one I want is the column as a label, or I want it as a text to be displayed, and I bind it. The binding I will do it here with the text property. That's my first column. Second, I want, maybe right now I want all of them as a text column. So 5 columns I'm creating. Okay, just to right click and beautify this piece of code. Yeah, save this. So 5 columns. Now which path will I put here? Will I put here the main path, or will I put here the relative path? Anybody? Which path shall I put? Of course, a relative path to suppliers. Within supplier, you have name, city, contact name, since when, and status. So make sure the property names are correctly used. So I come back and I put name. I can also copy them properly. City, contact name, since when, status. Save this. We're done. That's it, guys. Binding is done. It's gonna pull up the data from the JSON model and gonna show you all the values on your screen. Let's go ahead and test it. Oops, it's not. It's just bringing plum. Can anybody tell me the reason why it is doing like this? Why it is just displaying me plum? Why it is not displaying me the data of supplier? Why? What do you think is the reason? The problem is, guys, binding, because if you remember, we have only binded whatever we select here. That path was getting binded to whole of this view. This complete view was pointing to that path. So this table also is actually going and thinking that somewhere some data is there within this path, within this slash fruits slash the record number, let's say nth record number, to which this whole view got binded. Now this table actually has to not read this context, it has to go outside this context and read data from main JSON, right? So maybe I'll quickly create again our JSON model for this and just bind my table with that JSON model. So at this time I'm going to show you the binding at element level. You remember we have 3 type of binding at app level, binding at element level, binding at view level. So I'm going to now create another model, as a named model, and I'm going to bind that named model only to the table control. Let's go to the view 2. I just go to the view 2. I'm just going to create in the on init method another model. अरे ये क्या हो गया? Go back code and just do this. And I'm just going to create a model quickly with our reusable dependencies. Let me put the dependency on the models. So it's Fiori is my namespace. We have model folder and we have models.js file, and that's my dependency. I'm just going to use this models, and I'm going to set this model, say var or model equals to models dot. I'm going to recreate this model, which is fruits model. Okay, just do that quickly, and then it gets me the fruit model, and I'm going to set this model only to the tables. So I can say this dot get view. I'm just going to get the table object. Let's get the table object dot by id table, and I just say set model to this table as this model. So my table should only take this model as a default model and nothing else. So whatever is set at the view level, it will take less priority than whatever is set at the table level. Now this table will have this dedicated model, complete model will come at the table level. So let's come here and just give an ID for the table as what we mentioned, and that's it. Now oops, sorry guys, it's not table. Table is here. So my table will now get a specialized model which is complete data of my fruits model. So it won't be inside the, it won't be referring to the context of view model. It will be referring its own model which is fully complete. It has all the data inside of it. That's what it will refer to. Let's come back, refresh the page and come back here. Oops, now it's not displaying any data anymore. Is there any problem? Press F12 just to be very sure. I think by the time we come to the view, the data is not set. The model is not set. Maybe what we can do is we can set the model. Model is set already at the app level. Items are already seems to be a table level. Let's see what mistake are we doing. So these items are already at table level. You see, they are already put inside of a table. Items are already inside a table only, guys. That's correct only. There's no problem about it. It's just that this, it's not referring to the main path. Okay, system is unable to refer to the main path. These items, what am I trying to point to our fruits model, and I'm trying to point to this main path supplier. This is what my purpose is, which it is not referring to. Actually it is still referring to the child of it, the relevant relative path actually. So my main intention is to point it to the main path of supplier, which is currently not working. So this supplier is what I want to point. So maybe just come back and see. So created again a fresh model, and this model I am setting only at the table level, but that's not working out for me actually. It didn't work out. Let me just save this, come back. It should work actually that way also, guys. Without even doing, it should work here also, because the model itself what we have is global model. Okay, our JSON model what we had set is a global model. System should be able to read the data here actually. I'm not sure why it's not reading. Even there is no need of this model again to be created, because it's already a global model. It should read the data. So slash supplier we have already put in the item segregation. That's curly braces also I put it. That's correct only. Let's see the list may, how did we do the binding? In the list also we did same way. So in the list we put items, curly braces, path slash fruits. Yeah, this is what we did because we wanted sorter. If you don't want sorter, you can just put curly braces slash fruits. This is what we did earlier and it worked. And then items aggregation, we had put object list item. Here we are putting column list item to do the item segregation. There is some problem. I need to cross check that. So give me some time. Maybe we'll check it. You also try this out. Can we bind the supplier at table level? That's what we are doing. Oh, okay, okay, guys. The problem, see, guys, I did a mistake. See the binding. At which control level did I bind it my items? At which control level I bind it? Icon tab. It's incorrect. Items is an aggregation of which control? Table control. It should be binded here. That's why I was wondering what mistake am I doing. I bind it completely wrong place. It should be done at the table level here. Save this, and now without anything extra you would see the data coming up for your view to inside of a table. So let's come back, and voila, you see it all displays over here, guys. All the suppliers are being displayed now onto the UI. Perfect. Clear, everyone? How did we got the data inside of a table from our model, which has an entity called supplier entity set? Now what I want to do for all of you, this is an exercise. So go ahead back, and the first thing what you need to do, you need to get me an indicator here. The color of the status should change based on the availability of the supplier. Okay, what you need to do, color of status should change based on status of supplier. If it is not good quality, it should be warning, it should be yellow, or sorry, orange. If it is obsolete, it should be red. If it is available, it should be green. So that's an exercise for all of you. Go back to the system, and inside of our table, what you need to do is change the color of status of each supplier based on, change the color of status based on status. So based on below table, you can see below rules. Okay, so that's what you need to do. So based on below rules, you got to change it. So let me define those rules. So I'm just going to insert a table. So what is the rule and what is the color I want? So if it is available, it should come in the green color. If it is not good quality, it should come in orange color, which is a warning. And if it is obsolete, it should come in the red color. So at runtime, I don't know what will you do. Whatever you like, you're free to do. I taught you all the concepts. You need to do this, get this working out. So I need the coloring based on the status. That's a very practical requirement. You might see this if, let's say, sales order is released pending pending approval. Based on that, you want to change the color of the text. Then how do you achieve that? Okay, so try that out. Let's see how many of you will be able to complete that. Any questions before we close today's class? Raji, you had some doubt yesterday, so would you like to ask that doubt? Or anyone else would have any doubt? Feel free to ask your questions before we wrap today's class. Friday aa gaya. Good. So we will get some more time to learn. It's a time for Friday. Guys, just spend for these 2 months your weekends. I am just asking your weekends for these 2 months. Okay. So just give me your weekends. Step into Fiori, work hard. You would definitely get results. Just text color. Yes, just text color. You have to change, not the row color. Actually, you can change row color if you want to really make it challenging for yourself. Go ahead and change it. If you feel the text color is not challenging enough, go ahead and try changing the row color as well. Okay, if possible. Yes, Raji, please unmute your line.
Hi, Annabelle.
Hi.
Actually, that doubt was fixed. That is related to the exercise which you give now.
Okay, great. Then
Yeah.
fine. Okay, anybody else, any doubt before we close today's class? Hope you enjoyed it. A lot of interesting concepts we learned about the binding, about asynchronous method calls, and now we have a nice little cute table available at front of our screen. In next class, I will show you F4 helps, how to use F4 helps for input fields, just like SCP GUI. How can you enable F4 help for input fields? We'll talk about fragments. We'll talk about custom controls. We'll talk about Google Map integration. Of course, that's will be the sneak peek of the next week. We'll talk about Google integration. We'll talk about component.js, the most important concept. Router, the most important concept. The manifest.json, the most important concept. We'll also switch to OData. What is an OData service? From very basic, very scratch. What is it OData is all about? All that we will be discussing in detail in our upcoming weeks. It's just a beginning of Fiori for all of you. Hope you are enjoying it. You can see the kind of application we have built looks very much similar to standard Fiori app. Okay. Now for me, continue to make the changes for this project. Where can I pick this code? This code is available in our training blog. You can go to our training blog, go to session presentation and study material, and you can see that in projects section, I have the entire code available. My first UI app, my first Fiori app. Yes, this is the one. You can download this zip, directly right click on folder of web ID and import it. I think you're missing the previous videos. You missed a lot of previous videos. Please look at those videos. I highly request you. Otherwise, you will keep on getting these doubts, which are covered already in previous videos. Okay, Vara. Okay, with that, it's a wrap on today's class. See you on Monday morning India time. Have a nice day and goodbye.